Hi everyone, I'm Jackspektra here with Odoamne, and welcome to a brand new podcast for the LEC. In this show, we're diving into everything LEC. The highs, the lows, and the drama in between. Our goal is simple. Give you all the coverage and stories you need to stay on top of the league. With a bit of spice, some strong opinions, and plenty of tea. And we are incredibly interested in your feedback. So let us know if you have any thoughts or feelings. Seriously, let us know down below.
Today's episode, we're talking about First Stand and why G2 is for sure the second best team in the world at this point. We're also going to be looking back at LEC Versus, the highs and the lows. We're going to be making a spicy tier list, drop some hot takes, and to wrap things up, we're going to tell you about one matchup that you absolutely cannot miss.
This show is brought to you by ExpressVPN.com. Visit ExpressVPN.com/LEC and grab exclusive LEC offer from the #1 gaming VPN. Sign up today to unlock Hextech chests, plus in-game skins and champions like Aurora and Silsao. Rewards vary depending on the plan you choose.
Let's kick it off then, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, G2, you're wearing the jersey. I'm not wearing the jersey, but I'm still like, it was a wonderful time to be an LEC fan.
It was because, so here's the thing. I got the jersey. I obviously wasn't on G2, I never made it there, but I got the jersey. I was once at their office because I think they had like their 10 or 15 year party, and I was like, why are you giving me this jersey? I hate this jersey, But now what a time to bring it up because, man, I mean, First Stand, walking into First Stand, I wasn't really hyped about the tournament at all because I was like, it's just like, it's not MSI, it's not Worlds. Yeah, maybe G2 is going to flop because that's the usual thing that happens with EU teams at internationals. But man, was I wrong.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest surprise was like, at first they beat BFX and it was like, okay, it felt really good. I'm not going to say it didn't feel good, but BFX, they're a little bit more untested. It felt like shifty. But the Gen.G series, I don't know. Like when we beat T1 in 2019, that was a close fist fight, back and forth. It was crazy serious. This was a slaughter.
So here's the thing, because I was watching it, and people say that I'm a little bit of a hater and stuff because I am, but like I was just sitting there, and the fact that it just wasn't close at all, I couldn't believe it was happening, because I was just sitting there and I was in disbelief, and the series was over, and I'm just sitting there on my chair, and there's just no emotion coming out of me because.
Bro, I was going.
I mean, I didn't expect it. I expected it to be like closer and stuff. But like, so the lead up to it was also that they beat BFX, right? So it's hype because it's LCK's #2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, when I was thinking of BFX, I was thinking that it's literally that they beat XL, the EU team, because like here's the thing. Here's the throwback I want to take you on.
Yeah.
When I was in XL, we went 10th. Right?
Okay.
And then we randomly made finals. Now, if that was a split that had an international tournament, we would have been the BFX at First Stand, Mm-hmm. Because that's what BFX was. If you look at the year back or at the previous year, they were kind of like, middle, bottom of the pack team, and then they just like maybe they fluked, a final and everything. But now all of a sudden they were at First Stand and they're LCK's #2 seed. So I was like, yeah, that's a little bit fraudulent. That's a little bit disingenuous. But then the Gen.G series happens, then they go 3-0, and I'm like, well, I can't hate anymore. I have nothing to hate, because they played good, right? Like, Skewmond was an animal, Labrov was an animal, everyone was pretty much an animal. It was actually just genuinely good gameplay. Decision-making was crisp. People might say that, maybe, Gen.G choked, but okay, buddy. If you're in a position to make Gen.G choke against you, Gen.G that is like 95% win rate, they're just like wiping the floor with absolutely everyone, then you kind of deserve some props, buddy.
I mean,
right?
It's crazy, right? This is a Gen.G that did not lose in the LCK.
Exactly.
They were so dominant, so unstoppable. But I think, as you said, it was like Skewmond and Labrov. They leveled up by far the most. I think the rest of the players, like Caps, you're kind of expecting him to at least be in contention with the top players in the world. But for me, I think Skewmond is just like, I have been riding the hype of this guy for so long now, but seeing this was like such a redemption for him, and just that he can be the best jungler in the world it makes me so hyped to see what's he going to do at MSI, what's he going to do at Worlds, how can he develop? Because this is his second year, you know? It's so new to him, and I just love this G2 roster.
The thing is, when Skewmon came and he was like new to the roster, he was kind of like, you know, the same as Yike, you know, being selfish and everything. But now he's kind of like evolving into this captain role, you know, like he said it himself. We saw it on the broadcast many times where he's becoming the captain and stuff. And it showed, right? Because when you look at the series against Gen.G, what ended up happening is that, you know, they had good cross maps. They were just in sync everywhere. They were doing every single play that they needed to do perfectly, right? And he was like the engine behind it, right? And I don't want to go into the finals and be like, okay, why did he fail then? But still, the growth was there, because it's really not easy to have the whole team click and, you know, finally merge and play around you so well as he did against Gen.G. And exactly what you said. I'm so excited to see him going to MSI and going into Worlds later on, because I haven't had, you know, this much hope.
Euphoria.
Or this much euphoria, exactly, into a new jungler for a while, right? The last time
I think Yike was kind of exciting, but not to this level.
Not to this level, because you could see limitations, right? You could see limitations when it comes to Yike, because I would be like, he doesn't really like, you know, control. He's kind of like back and forth. It feels like that switch needs to flip between, oh, do I want to play for the team or do I want to play for myself? While Skewmon just kind of makes that look a little bit seamless, you know? And the last time I felt excited about an EU jungler was probably Jankos, right? It always comes down to that 2019.
I think Ilyoya has been pretty exciting. But he never had crazy performances in internationals. He had good games here and there, but not like a crazy standout tournament, I'd say. But what do you think then went wrong for G2? I mean, it was a classic, right? G2 beats LCK, and then up in the final against LPL.
Yeah.
Oy, oy, oy.
I mean, there's a lot of things. So, like, off the top of my mind, there's also the thing where you're so euphoric that you beat Gen.G, because, I mean, hell, you should be, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you saw the voice comms and they were, like, super wholesome, right? So this is, like, not in any way putting blame on people for feeling the way they felt, you know? Like, BB was holding Skew back. Skew was, like, popping off really hard. And I think it has nothing to do with it, but, like, you know, just the factor of, you know, you feel this much relief that you're beating arguably, you know, the biggest
Are we going on the copium train that G2 lost because they were too happy about beating Gen.G?
No, I mean, I'm just saying that's like that's a factor, right?
Okay.
It's a factor.
But it's also, you could argue the opposite, though, because if you beat Gen.G, it's a huge confidence booster, morale booster.
So it's like, you know, you're little Timmy, you know, and you have Thanos in front of you, and you're like, the fate of the world is in your hands, little Timmy, and you have to beat Thanos, and then you beat Thanos, and then, you know, it's like it's his
and then Thanos 2 comes.
Yeah, it's like his brother in the final, you know, and it's you just had the biggest challenge that you ever had in front of you. You overcame it, and now you're like, okay, now lock in again, you know? And it's hard. It's hard because obviously they had a lot of confidence going in it, and because if they would play without confidence, they wouldn't, like, you know, beat the life out of Gen.G like the way they did. But it was a bit difficult because it's hard to lock in, but I feel like, honestly, it was just gameplay. Because they lost a bit of that crispness, right?
I think for me the biggest difference was, like, Bin was a huge driving factor in BLG. It felt like BB consistently, I mean, he was always playing the weak side and the tanks in pretty much every game, but Bin is the one player that will really, really punish that. And I think what we're seeing that's really nice is with the kind of removal of lane swaps, you have, like, Keen, for example, he pulled out the Vayne. Kind of sucked on it, not gonna lie. But I think the fact that you can play these more explosive counterpicks in top again makes top lane a lot more interesting to watch. I think in EU we didn't see so much of it. It was a lot of, like, handshaking lanes here and there. But I think Bin really showed that if you're going to give him the Gnar, if you're going to give him the Camille, if he's on something that's scary, it's going to be really, really scary.
Exactly, because lane swaps used to like run away from the big spooky man, you know. And in EU, it's exactly as you said, there's a lot of, like, handshaking, and you don't really see people break the meta of, you know, here, let's handshake a tank, let's handshake, like, you know, a carry that goes like 50-50, you know. But, like, his Jax is different, you know, and his Camille is different. And it's like these matchups, I would have said, like, you know, because I play those matchups and I would feel like, you know, I don't want to throw shade at BB, but some matchups should be like, winnable. Like, there's a reason why in EU at least, people don't want to play, the Camille or the Jax into like, Sion or Cassante and stuff, because they're, typically losing. So it's also kind of like the comfort of like, hey, this guy is just so damn good and so damn comfortable that he will pick whatever he wants because he plays those sides of the matchups and he makes them work, and then the pressure is on you to punish, But it's always felt like it's just, I don't know if it's so much also like a mental thing where most of the times where it's just like G2 at internationals, it's been in front of them. And he's been like, we had it with Suning, with the GP battles and stuff, which was, I think was maybe the first or the second edition in the, moments that precede G2's disaster at international tournaments. But it's just like, it's hard because he does every year. I feel like he's in the contention of being the best top laner in the world, and now finally in a meta where it's just hard to get away with swaps. It's hard to like stop him because again, it's not bad to lose against the best players in the world. It's like you take games off of them, but it's like he gets to show it so much every single game, and it's just like hard, it just puts you in the backseat where you really need to find options to take him down or neutralize him, and lane swaps was one of those things.
But did you feel like G2 could have drafted differently or better, or it? Because I was really impressed with BB, how he stepped up, and something that was interesting about G2's game plan, in my opinion, was they kind of kept this perma weak side BB, put him on Cassante, put him on Sion, put him on Ornn, put him on Shen, put him on anything that can just survive, and then we'll play for Bolt. While most of the other teams weren't really approaching draft that way. I don't know, you as a top laner, did you like how they approach draft? Do you think when you're up against someone like Ben, you need to skill check him instead and be like, we're going to play winning matchups? They kind of tried that with the Yorick into the Gnar, for example, but nothing really seemed to be working. Like, what would you have wanted to see?
I didn't hate the drafts, to be honest, because I think, like, primarily on the top lane side, I feel like the matchups are fine, right? Like, every time I see, or every time I used to play Sion versus Jax, it felt like it's Sion favored. Every time you play Cassante versus Camille, it's Cassante favored. So the thing that you always used to be is that, tanks beat the carries in lane, and then you get outscaled at some point. So I don't really think the draft was realistically an option. I just feel like it was kind of like one of those things where, hey, you have the tools to win the matchup. Now, are you going to win the matchup?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't. So then it's kind of like an execution problem, right? And it's just like, Bin is the best.
Bin is the best, but we did still, we beat LCK, we beat Gen.G, we beat BFX. So a lot of good things. I don't know. Do you think it was LCK underperforming? Do you think G2 just had great prep? Do you feel like what do you think were the factors that led into this? I mean, we can always say like Gen.G choked. We can say BFX choked. We can say whatever. Or we can just, live in reality that we beat LCK and we're actually not too bad.
That is the reality, is that the LEC is better than LCK. I mean, I did give you my thoughts on BFX, and I thought that there were like a lot of question marks there with like, the Excel analogy and stuff. But like Gen.G, I'm like, buddy, if this team is just mopping the floor with everyone, you don't just beat them by chance. Like G2 actually was good at the tournament, right? Even when you look at the finals again, it's like you had competitive games all around. Maybe one game it was like, a big stomp, but game 4 was like completely winnable. They were in winning position. Game 2 was like winnable as well. So I'm like, it does bring me a lot of hope when it comes to EU, because as a player, every time you would be like in those scrims and you would be watching VODs, is the player mentality is like, I'm gonna go watch Gen.G because they're the best team in the world. And now I'm like, when you have that mentality from players and you're in the same region, and now everyone's like, you cannot cope anymore, right? The cope, yeah. They just G2 took the cope out of everyone, and everyone's like, well, now maybe I need to go watch some G2 VODs, And if that team is in the same region as you, it is a reality check, right? It does force you to face the uncomfortable truth that this team is actually good from like, a player side or from the team side, where you're like,
Isn't that like nice as well? Like, at least for me, if I was a KC player or a Fnatic player or whoever, you think to yourself, okay, if we beat G2, we can contest teams at MSI, contest teams at Worlds,
Yeah, it is, because now you feel like you're fighting against teams, or like you're fighting against the team in your own league that you get to scrim every week, that you get to maybe, play in the split at some point. You get to have this sort of practice or this sort of reaffirmation that you can beat a team that is realistically one of the best in the world. I would say there's even like top 4 or top 6 after this performance, because like honestly you deserve it after you beat Gen.G. Sure, maybe it was one tournament and maybe it changes in like 2 or 3 weeks, but for the whole region I feel like it's a big boost, because now everyone's like looking forward to playing G2. You're looking forward to play the team that came back from first stand, and that to see what they learned and how they impact the meta, and looking to pick up things from them, because it always used to be that you're in your own bubble here in Europe and all you want to do. And that's why everyone was talking about it. Oh, I want to go to Worlds, or I want to go to internationals. The reason they wanted to do that is because you get to scrim the good teams.
Yeah.
And you finally get to break this bubble of like you're saying, oh, maybe I'm scrimming, 8th or 10th place team in the LEC. I'm learning nothing. But now I'm like, you have the option to kind of like spread that information everywhere. And that's what I think is really hype for EU.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really exciting is that if we look back at like the LEC Versus finals, that was super close back-to-back. We had KC versus MKOI, went the distance, went 5 games. We had KC versus G2, went the distance, went 5 games. So it wasn't like, this wasn't a series, or a season rather, where G2 just swept the whole region and looked like the clear favorites. I mean, they were 1 game away from not even making playoffs. Yeah, and the fact that they then pulled it through and made this run happen at first stand, for me, it gives so much confidence to the region, and also just makes it so much more exciting to think, okay, LEC versus Spring, there's so many teams here that could all then, if they win, can contest in MSI and in Worlds.
I mean, we saw it last year with KC as well. They made for first stand finals as well. But
okay, that one feels like an asterisk.
Okay, it was a little bit fraudulent, right? I mean, but like, this one with G2 obviously feels like a slam dunk, But like, the point where I want to get at is that teams are just rather inconsistent here, right? You have MKOI, hell, even G2, they almost didn't make playoffs, and then they wouldn't not have had this run. You have MKOI as well. It does feel like it's always like a couple of teams that, level up at times, more rarely than not, I would say right now. But like for me, the clear one is G2, that is just consistently leveling up to a level that is not even like, I'm going to level up and do international. They're going to do more. So we do have KC, and I am looking at them, and the matchup was extremely close. But I am, again, really hoping that with this performance now in Europe, you have extra motivation for KC and MKOI, because realistically, for the region to do better, and also for G2, because they're kind of like, our landmark when it comes to international performances, because we always put our hopes in them. We need the whole region to level up, and that's where I feel like maybe extra motivation now for KC and MKOI, because they always go toe-to-toe, but it's just like, it was inconsistency that was plaguing them pretty much. But I also feel like this sort of inconsistency, them leveling up at good moments, did make, G2 achieve this sort of performance, because there are times where you're pushed, but you're just not consistently pushed enough,
Yeah, I think G2 should continue getting pushed throughout the year. And I think if we look back to KC and LEC Versus, for me, they were my favorites coming into the season, and they didn't end up winning it, but I mean, they were 1 game away. And I think just the addition of Busio has looked so fantastic. I think Lebrov James, Busio, that matchup is going to be incredibly exciting to watch, because Lebrov, for me, was by far the weakest link of G2, but seeing him level up through the whole season, to be honest, and then in first stand culminating in some fantastic performances. I'm still remembering he played Rakan, and then in the BLG game, like, he dodges the Cassie ult when he's ulting, and it's just like, wow, Lebrov, it's so beautiful. And I think that matchup in LEC Versus was super exciting to watch, but then in Spring as well, seeing how they build that rivalry and seeing how KC continues to develop, because I think KC can still be the best team in our region, and the amount of talent on that roster with Kalist, Busio, Yahoo, it's just, I mean, Khan and Yak, like, all 5 players are fantastic, and the same can be said for G2. So I think the future is bright for our region.
Exactly, because you couldn't say it better. I feel like all of the changes made sense, when it comes to KC. They upgraded the coaching staff as well. It is shaping up to be a KC versus G2 rivalry, because I feel like ever since KC came into the league, they've always done, these... they had good performances, right? They were consistent at the right times. But also, I'm still looking at MKOI, right? Like, I still really, really want MKOI to level up a little bit, because for me, even though when I look at MKOI, the inconsistency is plaguing them, but I do feel like they have that clutch factor a lot more than KC does, Because it used to be this meme with, like, because they hate it, the Spanish community hates it when you say Instinto, right?
Oh yeah, that they have instinct. They're good at game instinct.
Yeah, but that just means clutch, you know? Like it just like making clutch factor or like, you know, being clutch makes it so it's such a skill that is so much harder to develop.
Yeah.
When in reality it's like, you know, fundamentals, yeah, sure, you know, you just take like a month or 2 or 3 and then you build them up, you know? But like you can't teach players to be clutch, you know? So this is kind of like what I'm looking where like we do have good skeletons, you know? There's like a lot of teams that can do so well, you know? But just like everyone with like different like, you know, factors plaguing them.
I think it's a pretty clear like top 3 with KC, MCO, and G2. But moving down the ranks a little bit, we had Los Ratones in LEC Versus, which was a lot of fun. And you were the coach of Los Ratones, not when they were in LEC, but before. How was that? Like, were you cheering for them? Were you happy for them?
I mean, I was happy. I was happy for them because being there, you know, and seeing how the beginning happened, right? Because they had a rough couple of weeks. I was like, yeah, from my own personal experience, that's going to be a little bit of a dumpster fire. You know, I didn't really expect much from them. I mean, who knows? You know, you saw G2 make it to... G2 technically took Los Ratones' spot, right?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. If Fnatic beat G2 in the last game of LEC Versus, we would have had Los Ratones beating Gen.G at first hand.
Exactly. And then Los Ratones, you would have had, you know, like the Baus lifting first stand trophy because Baus versus
Bin. That would have been crazy. No pots against Bin.
No pots against Bin. He did start buying pots. No, but it was good. It was good. And I was happy to see, like, you know, the growth of them, but also like other teams. I felt like just the whole of LEC Versus was hype, you know. It culminated with like a lot of hype. Usually regular seasons are like super boring and everyone's kind of like tuning out. And I usually don't care when it comes to last week. And I'm like, whatever, whoever makes it, makes it. I was like kind of hooked,
it was crazy close.
I was hooked. I was hooked on the whole thing.
So many possibilities. It was really crazy. Did you follow Witchcraft at all?
I did follow a bit of Witchcraft,
Did Crownie have Prio?
I mean, in that moment, I don't think he did have Prio, no? But like...
moving on,
yeah.
You're now coaching Fnatic.
Yes, sir.
And what do you think were the problems for the teams this year? Or for like, what went wrong? Like, I was hyped about Fnatic. I was hyped about Vladdy.
So, I think, I mean, been there only for like a little week, but I think it's just kind of like the regular, you know, inconsistencies when it comes to new teams that I feel like it plagues most of the other teams as well. It's just kind of like when you have like, you know, a lot of strong personalities, the different personalities, you know, it just kind of feels like, you know, hard to like, you know, fit in. And especially for someone like Vladdy, and I feel like that's kind of like a thing that happens with most rookies to a degree or less, I would say, is that when you come in, you kind of have this feeling that you need to find your footing and what you want to like, you know, provide for the team. We see, because we had Vladdy, you have Aiken, you know, there's like a couple of rookies that I feel like have varying degrees of success when it comes to how they fit in. You have Vladdy, Yai, Kalist, Naknako and stuff. And Vladdy, for example, he was like one that I felt like when it comes to Fnatic and LEC Versus, I expected a lot more from him, you know, because, you know, coming off of the KC performance, winning the split, and then everyone was like super hyped and it's like, yo, this guy is gonna be the new Caps. He's gonna have like, you know, all of these pop-up stellar moments, you know. He was quite lacking, you know, while you look at the other side, I'm like, you see Yike cementing himself in KC. I thought it was, you know, like great. Kalist is still like rising to the ranks, but like Naknako as well.
Yeah. I
feel like, I mean, we talked about Fnatic, but I wanted to pivot a little bit more into like rookies and stuff because...
Fnatic's that bad, huh?
I mean, can't really comment on that, you know, but it's just like, because I always see this narrative, you know, around the LEC and LCK. It's like, why is LCK so good or why is the LPL so good? It's just because you have like, you know, factory of, you know, rookies that coming in and like, you know, are doing extremely well. And sure, yeah, maybe they have a lot more talent, but like still in EU, we still have those boys, right? We still have the talent. We still have the rookies, the young ones who come in.
I think as well, like we've also taken some of the NA talent to upgrade our own.
Ooh,
we got Yukino.
Close on.
We got Yukino and we got Jojo Pyun. Jojo Pyun is not a rookie, but still one of like the best talent, I'd say, out of NA. So it feels like all of the West is kind of culminating in Europe, and that's where people are coming to try to make it into the LEC, try to play in ERLs. And I think that helps as well to develop new players. And I think it's a wonderful time for like new talent because, as you said, like Kalist and Naknako for me have been like the two standouts that I've really enjoyed, and Skumon as well. I mean, we can't talk about Skumon. It's absolutely insane what they've been doing, and just the start of their career. And then we think about someone like Caps. If they can keep that type of longevity, they can really cement themselves as key players in the whole region.
Exactly, because when you think about it, LEC started going bad or like downhill a little bit is when you didn't have like, the superstar top teams. It felt like you had a time where like, G2 and Fnatic, the 16, 19 era, 2020, you had these two clashing heads all the time. And then, contract jails happen. Some teams can't keep their rosters together anymore. And you have all the superstar players kind of going away. And it always felt like the ceiling was getting lower and lower. But actually now when you have like Jojo, Busio, you have some NA imports as well, like, Yukino. And
I forgot about Busio. Yeah, of course, Busio. Like, we're taking all the good NA players.
Yeah, exactly. When you get all of them, it's also like the floor is starting to get higher. So it's kind of like we went from a time where I guess we were like privileged enough to have like superstar, top ceiling heavy teams, to now the floor is getting like slowly higher and higher. It does feel like now with all of this, with the influx of players as well, and also with the G2 performance, I feel like it's simmering up to be a good year, or like, maybe not even a good year, but just like a good period of time when you looked at the future as well, that like maybe it is the revitalization of,
of the LEC. Yeah.
I mean, that's why G2 is going to win Worlds, It's like everyone's going to be like super hyped. The teams are cool. Even though, all the teams just hate each other. They're like, oh, I want to like stomp this team. I want to stomp that. But it's like, now everyone's on the full copium train.
Okay, before we get ahead of ourselves with G2 winning Worlds, let's look at Spring Split. I thought we'd make a little tier list of all the teams and rank them from, I think, S tier all the way down to like, the lowest. You can put them
D
F
tier.
if you want.
You can put in. Okay, not F tier because
F tier is too toxic.
We are so after G2 won or like won against Gen.G, right? Because that's a win. Even though they lost first stand, they won against Gen.G, so that's a big win. The floor of the EU of the LEC is a lot higher.
Okay.
So we don't have F tier teams anymore. It's just D tier teams.
Okay, D tier is still pretty rough, but I'm gonna start off at G2 S tier. Pretty obvious. I think it's hard to say anything other than that, to be honest.
It's hard because I'm like,
you're wearing the G2 jersey, buddy. So
it's just like so the argument I'm going for is that you need to put them in the whole separate tier, because
like, S tier can be the single tier for them.
It is because here's the thing. I hate putting G2 in S tier. I really do, because it's always like they have the regular season.
It's like we know that they're going to sandbag.
It's just like so much sandbagging, and you just see it, and you're like, nothing makes sense, and you're like, you really feel like, okay, this is the one time where like KC or MCOY or someone else is just going to stop them and show them that you shouldn't sandbag, but it's just clear, S tier. You beat Gen.G 3-0, you have to put them S tier, and I feel like no one comes close, because this is the peak, like I really want, MCOY and KC, and let's go into KC as well, where I'm like, you can talk about both of these things because I feel like both of them just deserve to be in A tier, because they've been like, traditionally the contenders when it comes to facing G2. But I feel like, again, we touched on it a little bit earlier when it comes to their inconsistencies and things that they need to level up. And I just don't see a world where I can put them in the same tier as G2, because I'm all in. They made me wear the jersey,
Yeah, I think KC and MCOY, for me, KC is the second best team in the league. So for me, they slot into A tier nicely. And then Koi coming in the second team in A tier as well, I think makes a lot of sense. Both of the teams Koi took KC to 5 games, KC took G2 to 5 games. I think G2 leveled up a lot, which is why we feel comfortable putting them in the S tier just during first stand. While Koi and KC, they're still it's a clear top 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that. What's your next pick?
Okay, so now that the boring part is out of the way, because I feel like no one can argue with this, now I feel like it's the fun part.
Yeah. I know what my 4th best team is.
Your 4th best team, you want to go like that? Because I was like...
I know who else I'm putting in A tier, rather.
Well, I'm going to go all the way away from that, and I'm going to talk about Na'Vi a little bit.
You're going to... Okay, what are you going to say about Na'Vi?
So, I'm thinking, because we were hyped, we liked Na'Vi in Versus. We are big fans of Na'Vi in Versus. We were like, yeah, they're doing their dragons really well.
Yeah,
everything is cool. Rilich is playing top laners in the jungle because they're just like that OP and everything. And then something went wrong. Mm-hmm. And now when I'm thinking about it, so these guys, just to give a little bit more context, it was like week 3 or 4, and they said, we're making Worlds. We're going to go to internationals. I don't even know if they said they're making first time, but they said they're going to make internationals and they're going to win a lot. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool and all, but you lost to GX, when you guys were like stomping for the whole split. So now I'm like,
Hey, they got passion, they got ambition.
I mean, that's great, but here's the thing: that passion and ambition, when you get like when you get reality checked so early, it can easily turn into like a little bit of a dumpster fire, you know? The question is, are they gonna bounce back in spring? Are they gonna like, you know, refine everything and keep going? Because I don't know if I want to put them even close to like A tier, because if you would put me in Versus, I would say that they would be like an A tier, you know? Because that's what I thought from them. They were extremely consistent. They really just reminding me of like Elioya, and he was doing a lot of crazy good stuff. But now I'm thinking more, when I think about, or I try to find some clutch factor there, I'm putting them C tier.
C tier for Navi.
Yeah?
Okay, I mean, I'm going to just go down. Fate. I'm going to go down in order so it's easier for my brain to comprehend. I'm going to put Vitality in the A tier.
A tier?
Alongside KC and Koi. I think I loved watching this Vitality play. Oh, I just want more games of them. They were by far the most entertaining.
Entertaining, yes.
Listen, Naknako is the best top laner in the league. And we've seen, now Naknako has seen like what Bin did. He's going to analyze that. He's going to try to replicate that. He's going to have crazy counter picks. It's going to be beautiful. I was really impressed by Humanoid and Carsey in Versus. I thought they leveled up beautifully. I was pretty iffy on the Humanoid signing in general, but I feel like it brought such a vibe to this team, and you could see it in their macro that improved a lot. I think for me, for sure, this team is making top 4, maybe even more.
Wow. Okay, so you're just a fan. All you're telling me is that you're a fan of Carsey and Humanoid because of their mic checks?
No. Their gameplay. Did you see like Humanoid split pushing, Humanoid Zoe? They just had so many good games. I mean, Carsey had a ton of banger games. Yes, they are inconsistent. They are inconsistency, the team. But we are in inconsistency, the league. So I think they can really thrive in our environment.
Yeah, but no way you put them A tier, because I would put them B. I would put them B tier.
A and B tier, it's pretty much the same thing.
It's interchangeable. Close. Sure, you can put them at the bottom of A tier or however you want. I
have hope in them. I have faith.
I mean, I have faith in them as well, you know. But like again, it's like my faith is either gonna like repay me with like, you know, a top 3 or a top 4 finish, or like, you know, barely make playoffs kind of finish, you know, because it's just like how it is. Because like again, Naknako is gonna be great and stuff, and he's gonna get inspiration from Ben. But I'm like,
I mean, they're gonna have their time now to practice, to level up. They should have. I hope they spent that time practicing and scrimming.
No way. I mean, sure. Let's move on. Ooh. Now, since I'm going on the trend of like being a little bit of a hater, you know, and Navi, I just had like no belief in them. But what about SK?
Oh, SK is D tier.
D tier?
I think SK is D tier. I think this team looked so bad. I feel like leader, if he doesn't have a melee mid, I think the team just doesn't really work, it looked like. So I think teams will just ban 3 mid laners every game. And then I think Yopa and Wonder were pretty nice surprises. I think Mickey as well looked really off. And from how I kind of view Mickey and this project, I feel like he's the type of person to not lose like faith in his teammates, but I feel like this project did not go how they expected it to go. And I can easily see the mood going really down. And then they lose faith in each other, and the team is just a train wreck.
So when I think of leader, I think of that Astralis roster, right? Where I think they even made second or even first in regular season. I think it was the 2-group system. I'm not sure anymore, but it was like, at least it was like top 2, you know, at the very regular season. Mm-hmm. And it was like one of the first splits of the Astralis roster. And then they lost in playoffs, and after that, it just like everything just exploded, you know? Yeah. So I do agree with the D tier. I feel like I'm you know, watching with peak curiosity the leader experiment to see if it works or not, because he was kind of like, you know, the black sheep when it comes to players, or especially around the mid lane as well, because he was taught to have this, you know, melee play style that's going to be heavy, and he's going to do a lot of cool things and stuff, and I didn't see it yet. So I do agree that it's a bit of a crash and burn, but again, very entertaining, because I have so much fun watching it, you know.
Yeah, it was a good hate watch for sure.
For the good or the worse, you know, if you're a hate watcher, if you just really love Wonder, because Wonder was great, honestly.
Wonder was great. Wonder was fantastic.
Because I walked into the SK thing, you know, being a hate watcher, but then I stayed because I became a Wonder fan, you know. So there's a lot of like, you know, nuance over there. But let's talk about Shifters as well. Because Shifters was also the team
all over, yeah.
Yeah, they were shifting everywhere, you know.
I mean, Trimby for me was a great surprise, and this.
But the Arc was a great surprise as well for me.
Yeah, I think this team, just the individual components were better than the sum of their parts. Like, exactly. I think Rooster looked like a great top laner, Nook, great mid laner, Padak, Trimby, Bukala, I'm not so sold. I think wasn't the greatest, but in general, the team just didn't really gel, and they threw a lot of games. I think their mental went down. I think if they can like kind of bounce back and have some sort of like honeymoon phase, a renewal, I could see them being like a decent C, maybe even B tier. But I'm pretty pessimistic, I'd say. So I'm gonna put them in the C tier.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same as C tier, because I wouldn't put them in the same tier as SK per se, because I'm like, there's something about them that it just gives me a little bit of hope, you know?
I think they have the more individual like firepower than SK.
Yeah, exactly, because it felt like we had so many times where I felt like Padak and Tribi were taking over the laning phase, and Rooster was also having like, great performances. And Nuke, we've seen it plenty of times in the past, maybe it was a little bit of a sleeper split from him, but I do remember a lot of good games from him. So I'm just like, maybe it's just a case of, they didn't learn macro enough. They didn't have enough time. LEC Versus was like, was short for them because they just played like BO1s. They didn't even have the chance to play BO3s and, show a little bit more depth. So I'm a little bit more lenient with them. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt for a little bit and just put them in C tier. But
I think you're pretty harsh still if you're putting them in C tier, but
C tier?
I feel like C tier is like bad, no? I mean, it's not D tier, but
so the thing is, when you have A tier and it's just KC and MCoy.
That's true. I mean, we got stacked. It's a stacked league. What can we say? Moving on, I think Gen.G for me is a B tier, solid B tier team. It's like could make it into A tier, but we've seen this roster for so long now that I don't feel like it's gonna really develop much more than what we've seen. I love Giotto. I worked with him for a long time. Was one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. I really enjoyed him, and I think he can bring out the potential of this team. But maybe we have seen the potential of this team.
I'm gonna be a hater here as usual, but I'm like, I think we've seen the potential of this team. I feel like when you keep the same roster and you go into a new year with the same project and you feel like it's gonna level up and you don't see it, right off the bat, I'm like, how much more time do you need? Because for me, they're the gatekeepers, and now they're like peak B tier team. They're like solid. Don't get me wrong. They will win games off of teams above them and stuff like this. But when it feels like when I think about clutch factor, or when I think about, hey, who's gonna be putting on amazing performances and make me a fan of you, I don't see it outside of Noah and June. And even Noah and June, we've seen inconsistencies there as well, right? Yeah. But it's just like the team is solid, decent fundamentals and everything, but I can't put them more than B tier, and it's like I really want them to give me a little bit more. I really want them to give me something to be passionate about, improvements in gameplay. Someone have pop-off moments from anywhere from top and mid lane, because we've seen it from Isma as well a couple of times. But I just want solo lane, something to excite me. I want them to be okay, these guys are clutch, these guys are legit. I see them finally breaking into top 4, gaining more. I mean, they did break into the top 4, but even in their voice comments, they were like, oh, we made it somehow, So I'm like, I want to see more than that before I become a bigger believer of GX,
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, now moving on to, you did Navi, right? Where did you put Navi?
I put Navi in
C tier?
In C tier.
I think
I'm predicting a little collapse.
I think B tier for me. I think they're gonna be pretty solid, but you already said your piece about Navi, and I think my piece is just
I'm just a rogue hater, It's just
a rogue hater at heart. Yeah, there. I mean, they were good last split, and I think they have the potential to improve a lot, but I feel like B tier alongside Gen.G makes a lot of sense. But now moving on to Fnatic, who you have a bit of a vested interest. What
I have a vested interest, but to be honest, I'm gonna be completely impartial here.
Okay, completely impartial.
I'm gonna put it B tier.
B tier,
to be honest, because
they didn't even make playoffs. No, wait, they did. But they didn't make Los Ratones make playoffs.
Yeah. So that's why people are
so sad. They feel like they shouldn't have made no.
Yeah, no, but it's I put them in B tier because I'm off of Versus, I've seen too many inconsistencies, and Pyros honestly didn't rise up to the level where I expected, top laners, because you had Mainter came into the league and he was very good for a rookie, You had Trayson in the league who came in, and I felt like he was doing also quite well for a rookie, while I feel like Pyros was the one who was kind of lagging behind a little bit. So I felt like there was, again, individual firepower that was missing from the side of Fnatic.
Help Pyros and make him.
I mean, where there's fires, I have to put them out, wherever I am. But that is one of the fires that I will have to put out. But again, it felt like, solo lanes were lacking. Vladi didn't have the impact I expected him to lack, to have rather. I felt like he didn't really find his footing there. And I'm working a little bit on cope here because, you know, you have like Razork upset. As much as people are like, you know, super vocal about like, yeah, they're problematic or yeah, they're not like, you know, rising to the occasion. We've seen a lot of times, you know, Razork be clutch. We've seen a lot of times where Upset was doing well. Sure, Upset maybe didn't like, you know, win the LEC split that he's always saying that he is too good to win, you know?
Yeah.
But like, we're not judging off of that. We're judging off of like, you know, how they rank amongst the other teams. And I think that, you know, with the potential, because that's a word that, you know, was popular in the 2015s that went away, angst status, you know, with the potential, they have potential to do a lot more, you know, but it's like anywhere where like, yeah, if you're B tier and you don't do your, like, you know, you don't progress to the level that you should, yeah, you're going to fall down the rankings, you know?
Yeah,
that's just how it is.
I think lower B tier for me for sure. And then moving on to our last and final team, Team Heretics. Will they have now a way of making playoffs?
Hey, good one. The team with the only roster change in the split, right? Is the team with the only roster change that they had. No one else made any changes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like the roster change, to be honest. For me, it's a big question mark because like obviously something felt wrong with Heretics. It felt like they weren't really doing much. I felt like it was kind of like, you know, sometimes Shio would have like a miracle game and he would like pop off, you know, but solo lanes again, I felt like we're just kind of there. Ice was kind of like, you know, he was getting the pentakills, you know, he was racking them up, but it felt like the identity of the team was like, you know, Ice, hope you get some pentakills or we like lose the game a little bit.
Because the identity of the team was Ice and then they replace Ice. So for me, I think this
they replaced Sten.
Oh yeah, it's Sten. I'm stupid. But yeah, Wei is support.
Yeah. So I'm expecting to see a little bit more, maybe, you know, empower him a little bit more in the lady phase. You know, maybe the language barrier, you know, the anti-language barrier thingy because they're both Korean.
The communication.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe, yeah. What tier would you put them in then?
I'll put them C tier. I feel like...
Are they D tier or C tier? That's the question for me. I think I'm gonna put them D tier.
Actually, now that I think about it, I'm like, is SK and Heretics the D tier homies over there? Because I
think they're the D tier homies. Maybe the Korean bot lane can make it work.
Okay, I agree with that.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on from the tier list, we ranked all the teams. And we now have that or this. That or this. What's this or that? Never heard of it. This is the LEC where we're going to be comparing that with this. And let's start off with what would you prefer, Odo? A full EU roster wins MSI for an LECS side, or a full North American roster wins MSI for an LEC side?
Man, like both of those things just like infuriate me, you know?
Both would make me happy, I'm not gonna lie.
Really?
Yeah, at least it's not Korea or China taking our trophies once again.
But see, the thing is, I'm like, so if you have the EU boys, you know, like Euphoria happening in LCS, I'm like, why didn't it happen in EU? You know, why don't we have them to win for us? But on the other side, I'm like...
It would feel a bit fake if we won MSI and it wasn't a single EU player on the roster.
Yeah. But at the same time,
it is LEC, It is LEC.
So I'm like, we do something good, right? It's happening in Europe. They live in Europe. All of that is happening. I think I would choose... That would infuriate me the least. Having a full North American roster win MSI for an LEC side... I'm going for that because I think the other side I would just be like, I would be mega molding because so here's the thing, here's why I would mold. Because I would go on Reddit or I would go on Twitter or any other social media and you have the NA fanboys who just wake up, don't watch a single day of
But you'd have that regardless of which side.
But yes, but the thing is that like it infuriates me. The thing that infuriates me the most is when those guys over there in NA, they're like, oh, we did this. We took this and we made it work. It's, LCS and NA, baby. And I'm like, no, those guys are our players. You made it happen. You stole everything from us. You made it happen. And now you're like, oh, we did all of that. No, you just debated people with money. That's what happened. But now, if it happens the other way, it doesn't count. It doesn't count because the EU boys, the EU fans are better. The EU fans don't go on social media and do their little rage baity things.
Nah, yeah, KC fans, MK fans, they'd never do that. I think all LEC fans are super nice.
You're right. Let's move on to the next one. I'm not debating that anymore.
I mean, 2019 Jankos or first stand Skewmont.
Ooh. See, the problem is that 2019 is a long time ago, 7 years ago. I think a lot of our fans didn't
it's
even
that
watch.
long ago. Oh yeah.
a lot of our fans didn't even watch in 2019, so they don't even know how good Jankos
for
was.
Sure, people. Maybe you're right.
They heard about him, but they don't remember exactly how good he is. Because I'm willing to say that I would choose first stand Skumon, But that's just because the euphoria is so intense right now that it makes me forget actually how good Jankos was in 2019, and which is I think the feeling that most of the people would have, which is insane. Because I do think that 2019 Jankos is the daddy of EU junglers. I don't think first time Skumon comes close to 2019 Jankos with the things that he was doing for the game and pretty much for the whole, league and everything. But it's just like, you forget about those things because it's like 2019 got bashed into everyone's head so hard that people just hate when they hear 2019 because it's just like the copium train,
I mean, I think 2019 Jankos, for me, just like how dominant they were. Like the thing with first stand Skumon right now and Skumon in general is like I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of I'm looking at him and I'm super excited. But it's excitement about something that will happen. It's not that I'm not confidently going to say Skumon is the best jungler in the world. While Jankos throughout most of 2019, I think you could say he was the best jungler in the world up until he played an LPL team and then yeah.
But that's always the thing. You just play an LPL thing and then the thing happens,
Yeah. Well, Caps ends 2026 with a World's Trophy and retires, or Caps plays another decade at a top level but never wins another international trophy.
Oh, come on, man. You can't do that to me.
Caps, you got to... It is what it is, bro. You had a great run. I think you got to throw in the towel. I'm going to trade you for a World's Trophy. I'll play your skin, bro. I'll buy your skin on multiple accounts.
That's true. I will drop the 500, on all of those skins when it comes to Caps because I'm like... The saddest thing as a player who wins or comes close so many times is it happening over and over and over again and still not stopping. So for me, they're both kind of like they're not a heartbreak, I guess. Caps winning Worlds is like, peak euphoria. I feel like, holy smokes, those narratives are going to go crazy for the next 20 years, But Caps playing another decade, being the best... I can even change it. Caps is the best player in the world for a decade but never wins an international trophy.
Oh, that would be heartbreaking.
That would be heartbreaking because you could just feel for him. You just see that demonic smile. He would still smile. The messed up part is that he would lose all those world finals. Imagine he would lose all the world finals every year, and he just still does his little funky wave with the smile. But you know that he's dead inside and he's suffering. And I'm like, I can't have that. I'm just come on, Caps.
Okay. If we get a decade straight of Caps being the next faker and going to Worlds finals 10 years in a row, even if he doesn't win, I think I'd rather have that.
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Okay, because I was there. I was Caps in the analogy. I played 10 years in LEC, and I barely won the LEC. Yeah. And there were many years where I was maybe top 1 or top 2 in my role, uncontestedly.
Yeah.
But the worst thing that would have ever happened to me was not win. Because I would just sit there and be like, no matter how good you are and no matter how good the fans would think you were, if you don't win, people there's a chance that you feel like you're a failure, So that's the thing. When you're so competitive and so talented as Caps is, I feel like he needs a grand finale.
Okay, fair enough. Well, moving on to some hot takes. You, my friend, have a few of them. Here, have a Timo shroom. We're moving on to hot shrooms.
Ooh.
What's your take, Oda? What do you have to say to the world that maybe other people would not be so brave as to say?
So here's my first one.
Okay.
BFX. BFX would not be a top 4 team in EU. LCK number 2 seed would not be
That's pretty crazy to say, yeah. So you're telling me BFX would lose to Giant X, MKOI, KC, and G2?
Okay, maybe not the Giant X. Maybe top 3,
I think top 3.
I think they wouldn't be top 3. They would probably wipe the floor with Giant X,
Okay.
But top 3, I don't see them. LCK number 2 seed would not be top 3 in EU.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, you gotta tell me why. You can't just say
I told you for me they are Excel. They're just like a team that was a burger flipper for couple of years straight or a couple of splits straight. They were kind of middle of the pack. Maybe they fluked because HLE was somehow the 10th best team in the LCK when they have Thanos on the roster. So I'm like, I think that they fluked and, they're not consistent enough. When you think about LCK and those teams, you think peak consistency. Gen.G was always consistent. T1 was like always like, you knew that
they always ramped up.
Yeah, it would ramp up. Playoffs comes, Daddy Faker wakes up and he's about to like stomp you in the ground, But when I think of BFX, I just think I'm like, you got lucky. It sucks to say. I feel like I'm always like a big Cope hater.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't see them making top 3 in EU. They need to show me more.
What do you think, like, what would the EU teams abuse against them? Like, for me, the biggest thing with BFX, like, if I were to devil's advocate here, or play into your favor, rather, I feel like it's Diablo and friends, and if Diablo is behind and he's not having a good game, the team looks completely different. And I think I could see someone like KC or MKOI trying to abuse that, like how G2 did. Like, that's what Cap said in an interview, that Diablo plays really far forward, and they noticed that the team is all about Diablo, so they just look to shut him down.
Exactly. It's probably just the Diablo show, because from others, I don't see that much. But I have another one for you.
You have another hot take. Okay, keep it going.
Na'Vi will not make playoffs in spring.
Okay, fair enough. I think that one... Wait, let me think.
Top 6.
Hot. It's pretty hot, yeah.
Top 6. I don't think they will make top 6. I think regular season, they're going to crash and burn. I think they're going to get a little bit of a reality check when it's like, you hit that wall as a new team that had like a lot of like, momentum, and they're like super hyped and super excited. Everything was going well for them. Cinderella story was like, peak content right there. And now they just hit a wall, and I'm like, can you bounce off the wall? And I have this little gut feeling that they're not. So that's why I'm saying I don't think they're going to make top 6.
I think they're going to make top 6. I have a lot of faith from this team because, they're kind of predictable, right? They just play around Drakes and they kind of play the same game plan all the time, but they look really good doing it. I really love seeing Reletch on the crazy junglers. I think he can keep doing that. You can be really creative in the jungle world these days. So I think this team has a lot of potential. It felt like a very new team, right? And they gelled very quickly. So I don't see why they wouldn't continue improving.
Keep on coping, but come on, give me a hot take.
Bro, I don't have any hot takes, man. I'm chilly today.
What about the dark horse?
Really...
What do you think about SK?
My hot take is SK will be 10th place in the league.
That bad?
I mean, it's funny because our producers put SK is still the dark horse of the LEC, but I don't believe that one bit. I don't know if you do.
No, I mean, Cinderella kind of showed his face, in LEC Versus, but I don't know if I would put them 10th. Actually, now that I think about it,
we did put them in D tier, both of us, in the tier list.
With Heretics.
So.
Okay. When you put it like that, I do think it's 10th. I think no dark horse there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that hot of a take, though. I think it's just a take at this point.
It's just the sad reality, I'm afraid. But as we're looking at the reality now, we're about to start off the spring split.
Hype.
And a new patch. We're on patch 26.6. So a lot of changes. I don't know, have you been playing much solo queue? I've been playing a little bit of solo queue. I've been doing an A to Z challenge, playing every champion from A to Z.
That's hype. It's
pretty fun. What are you looking forward the most? Do you have any teams that you're looking forward to watch? Or?
Ooh, so I think the patch, for example, because let's go from there. I think the patch just, nothing really changes. Realistically, just like first stand patch. I think it's like 2 patches ahead of first stand or just 1 patch ahead of first stand. So when it comes to the patch, I feel like not much will change. Maybe we'll see new champions arising, like, Skarner. Maybe you are still plagued by the boring Azir meta.
Yeah.
The thing that excites me the most is not the patch, it's just that we have best of 3s from the beginning to the end. Playoffs happens.
Okay, wait. I need to talk about this, actually, because I've seen so many people flaming the best of 1s, but best of 1s are fun, man. We had one of the craziest best regular seasons ever, and it wouldn't have happened.
One of them. It was one of them.
But it wouldn't have happened if it was best of 3s. Do you think all the things that happened would have happened if it was best of 3s? Like, for sure, G2 would not be 1 game away from elimination. We would not have such a close race. It wouldn't be such like a messy, chaotic fist fight that was so entertaining to watch if we had best of 3s. Like, everybody says they want best of 3s all the time up until you get like a Rogue against SK. And of course, now we don't have Rogue anymore, but people want a lot of things, and then they get them, and they suddenly realize, best of 1s were actually pretty fun.
The thing is like, it's just that people always want a shiny new toy, And then the toy arrives and it's like, well, it's not as shiny as I thought.
Best of 3s are better. Like, objectively, they are better, But when we had 12 teams, there's a lot of games.
I think it was also the 12-team chaos that was fun.
That's true. It definitely added a lot to the spice. And I'm not going to say that I'm not excited for best of threes. I just think best of ones, they get a bit like hated more than they should. Like as a entertainment product, I think best of ones are a lot of the time more fun to watch than best of threes because every game has more stakes to it. And you'll never have that feeling of it's like a series that you don't care about. But we're on to best of threes. And there are a lot of exciting matchups and there's a lot of exciting teams. So who are you the most excited to watch, Odo?
Ooh, most excited team?
For me, it's KC. I love KC. I want to see Busio back on the Rift. I think they have so much to show. They're going to win Spring. Crazy. I know that's a crazy take.
They're going to win Spring after what G2 did.
For sure, at least they're going to win Spring or Summer. That's my number one take. I don't think it's even hot. Like, I could bring back the Shroomo guy. The little Shroomo guy. The
Shroomo guy.
Could bring back the Shroom, but I don't think it's a hot take. I just think Casey will for sure win either spring or summer.
Sure.
This team has so much talent. For sure.
I mean...
For sure.
For sure. Well, I'm going to go... I want content. So, I want to have fun. I want to be emotionally invested in the team because I want the team to make me feel alive because I'm always dead inside, So, I want to see more Vitality.
I love Vitality too.
Vitality is the team to watch because... Yeah. Even if they suck, I just want to go there and be like, what stupid shit are Karzi Humanoids saying in their games?
True.
If they int, I'm like, how hard is Karzi still laughing? If they win, what sounds are they making, And it's like, the gameplay is just chaotic enough, but it's like chaotic in the good way. Because before, when you would think about chaos, you would think about, a team is just doing like funky stuff, but they're inconsistent, so they can't be good. But somehow they're walking this weird fine line where they're just like inconsistent and chaotic, but they're still like good.
Because when they
lose, it's like they get outplayed, and sucks when you get outplayed by a better team and stuff. But like fundamentals are there, right? They're still like doing good things, and I'm like, I feel like right now when I watch Vitality, more often than not, I feel like they're gonna win.
Yeah.
But for sure, no matter what game I watch from Vitality, it's entertaining. Even if they lose, if they crash and burn, I'm like, I'm having fun watching it, because they do a lot of crazy stuff. They don't roll over and die. They still play.
Yeah, I think Humanoid brought a lot more consistency to the team and like kind of that fundamentals, that macro that a lot of players talk about him. And speaking of players, who are you the most excited about? Like we talked a little bit about the teams.
Who am I excited about?
I'm excited for Naknako on Vitality.
I think he's chose the easy
great.
one.
And I think Busio as well. For me, those are like the two players that I'm looking forward to the most. I could say all the G2 roster because they're also exciting, right? But that's kind of obvious. And I think those two are really the standout players for their individual teams that'll make a huge difference, even though they play kind of like weaker roles on paper.
It's hard because like I could go for like Skewmond, right? Because I'm like I want to see more, right?
Yeah.
If I would be looking at a pair of players, I'd be looking at Skewmond versus Yag because it's always like also the narrative, they got replaced or like one replaced the other. And now that I see Skewmond evolve, I'm like in this little fairy tale, where I'm like...
Maybe that'll make Yike evolve too, kind of vibe?
I'm like, I want to see Yike do the same because we see it a little bit, we saw it a little bit where he's finding his own footing and his own style and it feels like he's enabled on KC, But I want to look at them as like, what could have been for both of them, in that sense. And I want to see evolution more from like Yike and Skew, but I also want to see Skewmond just like, just go on a rocket ship, and just fly to the moon because he makes me feel like he can actually do it, Again, I don't see a lot of junglers that I would have this feeling from them. We would see it with Ilioya at times, he had good performance and stuff, but like now, since he's like, Skewmond is the hottie of the moment, I want to see him go to the moon, and I want to see like Yag build his own spaceship,
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about both KC and Vitality, which is also like our match to watch. It's the Battle of the French, and it's a really hype matchup that'll start off our LEC spring split. Who do you think has the advantage in this matchup? I mean, I think Casey's obviously going to win because I think Casey's going to win all spring.
Okay, buddy.
But I do think it should be pretty close. You did mention, I don't know if this is safe intel, but that Casey started scrimming quite late and they have had a pretty long break. I don't know when Vitality started scrimming, but that's always something to keep in mind. Like,
yeah. But also, so like, Casey did start scrimming this week, so very late start, so if they end up like,
having a bit of a rougher start, it makes sense, yeah.
But at the same time, regular season around 7 or 8 weeks, so it doesn't really matter. Realistically, you have enough time to like pick it back up. And given that it might end up being a drag, it might be good to have energy on the back half of the split. But it is exciting because I feel like when it comes to the first 3 days of the games, I feel like this is for me the most exciting part. It's not like, match of the week per se. I don't even know if I don't think we have this anymore, but it's just like it's just super exciting, because KC again is like a battle of stories. KC wants to like as you say, win the split for sure, spring or summer or whatever. It just feels like they have different aspirations. When I look at Vitality, I'm like, what happened in the break? How did the break?
Think we'll see how they've evolved. Kind of vibe, yeah.
Because I'm like, with that chaos and inconsistency that I was talking about Vitality, I'm like, these sorts of breaks can do a lot of things, So for me, I'm just more curious. Where I'm like, oh, Vitality, are you gonna disappoint me, or are you gonna like pop the hell off and make me like a super fan? Because I'm like, it's on a good day, Vitality is a top 3 team. That's just how it goes. So this matchup is super exciting because you have individual matchups that are great. You have Nagnako versus Kana. What's going to happen there? Because they are, the best 2-laning, top laners in the LEC that we have right now. And on the other side, you have, Jojo Humanoid, bot lane as well. You have Supra versus Karzi, So there's a lot of like head-to-heads that I'm really, really excited about and I really, really want to see. And I want that question answered. And for me, it's really cool because it's a matchup that kind of keeps me on my toes and makes me I'm super emotionally invested in it, and I have a lot of questions walking into it. Like regardless of who wins, KC or Vitality, I'm just looking at it. I'm like, finally, my questions are answered.
Yeah, fair enough. Is there any other matchup that you feel particularly compelled by? I think MKOI Fnatic could be pretty exciting. We'll see if Fnatic. I'm excited to see Fnatic and just how they've adapted, and I think this will be a direct representation of your value as a coach. So if Fnatic does bad, I mean, that says all we need to know.
You can see it day one, buddy. Come on, put my head on the chopping block just like that. You lose the first game, you're a shit coach. You should
fire Odoamne. I'm going to say that.
Lose your job.
I'm going to put that in every post-match story of Fnatic.
I hope you're casting that day so that, if Fnatic loses or, Fnatic loses to GX or MKOI, you get to, execute me live.
Yeah, we can see Imperials losing lane here. He probably learned that from Odo.
I did. Come on, buddy. I didn't lose that many lanes. Only internationally.
Fair enough. Okay.
Oh, but man.
That's it from us here at the LEC Podcast. We said all that we needed to say, but thank you so much, ExpressVPN, for supporting the podcast. Visit expressvpn.com and grab the exclusive LEC offer from the #1 gaming VPN. Sign up today to unlock Hextech chests, plus in-game skins and champions like Aurora and Sinsao. Rewards vary depending on the plan you choose. Hey Odo, do you know where I could watch the second best region in the world in person?
It's actually really funny that you asked me that because I know exactly where you can watch them. You can get tickets at the emeatickets.lolesports.com and you can watch the LEC live every single week in the studio. You can see Caps, you can see Skewmon, you can see all the boys and all your favorite players that you love.
Incredible. You could even see us as well if that's something you're interested in. But
maybe.
That was it for us. We'll be back in 2 weeks for episode 2. But before we go, we want to hear all of your feedback from episode 1. This is a new format for us, something new that we're trying, so we're really interested in hearing what you have to say. You can send them across to us on social media, drop them in the comments, wherever you please, really. So thank you for joining us for episode 1. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Follow us on social media if you want to, and you'll be the first to know when episode 2 drops in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.